everyone, my name is Shelby Vandiver and I will be doing my presentation on Squidward Q Tentacles, which is his full name, and he is from the show SpongeBob SquarePants. Squidward lives in Bikini Bottom, which is the town that they all live in, and he is a giant octopus, which is his species name. He's a male octopus and he lives in an Easter Island head statue with no friends or family. He does have two neighbors, SpongeBob, who lives in a pineapple, and Patrick, who is a starfish and he lives under a rock. It's just so you get a clear picture of what the show is like. So he works at the Krusty Krab alongside with his neighbor SpongeBob, who is his co-worker. And Squidward is often portrayed as very moody and very easily irritated, especially by his neighbors and boss. Mr. Krabs is his boss, who is a crab, if you couldn't tell. Squidward enjoys very few things in life. However, he loves music and art in most forms. He enjoys playing the clarinet and painting self-portraits. Squidward is very smart, though. He seems to demonstrate a higher than average intelligence. But his main occupation is cashiering at the Krusty Krab. He unfortunately dreads his job and the people that he works with. I feel like it's one of the main sources of stress in his life. So it's very social. He has no friends, and most people that he comes in contact with, he seems to detest, and he prefers time by himself. However, this time that he spends by himself doesn't really seem to satisfy him ever either. Unfortunately, Squidward's behavior in this show is very deviant from the norm, but to me, it seems that is also distressful, dysfunctional, and dangerous at times. Deviance from the norm is when a person's behavior is out of the ordinary, and that very accurately describes Squidward's behavior. Everyone in Bikini Bottom is very happy, very easygoing. Take his neighbor SpongeBob, for example. SpongeBob enjoys work and he enjoys school. He shows a lot of motivation and drive. He also has a very healthy social life. He has many friends. He has many physical hobbies, as well as he frequently engages in jellyfishing and karate. And most people in Bikini Bottom behave in this same way. They're very satisfied with their life and they seem to enjoy themselves a lot. Squidward, however, is not happy with life. He's often irritable and he doesn't interact with people really unless he's forced to through his job, and he has no friends or social life to speak of. His distressful behavior is demonstrated in the show quite often. Distressful behavior is when a person's beliefs or feelings causes them a lot of mental distress, though they may be able to function in life and go to school and get their work done. Inside they feel intense negative emotions. Squidward shows this a lot. He does show up for work every day and he does his job as well as he can, but he has intense feelings of misery every single day. His feeling of distress is accurately demonstrated in episode 26B of season 2. The episode is called Squidville. And in this episode, Squidward moves out of Bikini Bottom, which is the town they all live in, and he goes to a town called Squidville, which he believes is filled with fellow like-minded giant octopus such as himself. When he first moved to this town, he believed that he was as happy as everyone around him. They all seemed to be just as intelligent as he was. They all enjoyed art and music. Everyone seemed very quiet and peaceful, which was a big change of pace for him compared to his life back in Bikini Bottom, where SpongeBob and Patrick would often wreak havoc on his peace, it would seem. Unfortunately for Squidward, though, his newfound happiness was short-lived, and he quickly fell back into his normal feelings of despair. As the days went on, Squidward's feelings of distress continued, and he gave up on trying to be happy and moved back to Bikini Bottom. This shows that Squidward's problem is not external to him. This is coming from inside of him, from his own mind. He does sometimes show dysfunctional behavior as well. Dysfunctional behavior is when a person's mental state impairs their ability to work and function. Squidward's behavior, though sometimes subtle, does often affect his work performance. Squidward is often rude to the customers and to his boss at his cashiering job. And in one incident in episode 47 of season 3, he ended up getting so frustrated with his boss, Mr. Krabs, that he physically assaults him by grabbing and squeezing his eyes and ultimately losing his job in that episode. This behavior is extremely dysfunctional. He's so easily irritated that it makes him unable to properly function at his workplace. So Squidward's behavior, on top of being dysfunctional, is also very dangerous. Dangerous behavior is classified as behaving in any way that may cause harm to oneself or to others. And there's multiple episodes where he shows this, like the example I just gave where he squeezed Mr. Krabs' eyes because he was irritated. That could be classified as dangerous behavior. In episode 19 of season 1, Squidward goes to extensive lengths to cause bodily harm to his co-worker and neighbor SpongeBob in an April Fool's prank. And SpongeBob kind of goes through a lot through this April Fool's prank. He's slammed against the walls and the ceilings, and he's like hit with multiple objects and people even. And this pain that SpongeBob goes through seems to give Squidward a lot of joy, so much so that he ends up rolling on the floor in laughter, while everyone around him seems to be very concerned about SpongeBob's well-being and all the pain that he's going through. They're kind of watching him in horror, but Squidward just seems to be very much enjoying himself through this process. This behavior is extremely dangerous as he's causing harm to others, and he doesn't really seem to be showing any remorse for it. He does end up feeling bad in the episode, but you can see it's more because of the way other people are reacting to what he did than it is him actually feeling bad about what he did. So, borderline personality disorder is a disorder involving a person with a pattern of impulsive behavior as well as having unstable mood in interpersonal relationships and an unstable self-image. They tend not to react to everyday stresses very well, and they disassociate in stressful situations. People with borderline personality disorder, or BPD, may have feelings of emptiness. They may get very sad. They have very strong negative emotions a lot of the time. People with this disorder may often harbor very intense feelings of abandonment and will go to far lengths to avoid it. People with BPD also have a lot of self-deprecating thoughts, self-defeating behaviors, which makes it hard for them to function in life. They may often have suicidal thoughts, suicidal gestures and attempts. People with borderline personality disorder will also experience uncontrollable rage and anger at times, which may even result in them harming somebody else or even themselves. People with this disorder will also have issues with their interpersonal relationships. One common behavior they may exhibit is switching back and forth between idealizing someone and devaluing them. So say they have a significant other or a friend, they will go back and forth between thinking very highly of them to thinking very lowly of them. I do believe that Squidward does have borderline personality disorder, as he fits many of the criteria. Squidward often has feelings of emptiness, as demonstrated all throughout the show. This particular feeling of emptiness really comes to a head, I feel, in episode 15 of the second season, where Squidward is confronted with the fact that he has given up on his dreams of music when he realizes he cannot orchestrate a music band to be good and win a contest. And because of this, he spirals into this state of self-despair and sadness, and he says that he, quote, was a loser after all. This self-deprecation and lack of self-image that he demonstrates in this segment is a really good example of what a person with BPD might feel when faced with stress and this particular type of failure. Squidward often has very strong negative emotions, similar to a person with a BPD, that he expresses through lashing out on undeserving people like SpongeBob. There are many incidences in the show where he insults and degrades SpongeBob, and it's not rare for him to get uncontrollably angry and attempt to physically hurt someone, especially usually it's the people closest to him like SpongeBob and Mr. Krabs. Everyone in Bikini Bottom seems to be very friendly, and everybody has friends. SpongeBob has Patrick and Sandy. Mr. Krabs has his daughter Pearl and Mrs. Puffs, but Squidward is really the only character in the show without any friends. In fact, he actively avoids people. This is an attempt, I believe, to avoid abandonment. Squidward is fully aware that he's not a pleasant person and that he does not have a likable personality or likable qualities at all. So he goes to extreme lengths, I believe, to keep people away from him, just like a person with borderline personality disorder would. If he never lets anyone get close to him in the first place, then he can never be rejected by them. And I think this is why he does this. This is why he pushes people away and insults them and puts them down all the time. So there have been incidences in the show where Squidward would commit suicide. In episode 169 of season 8, where Squidward is seen he's visibly disheveled. He, hasn't shaved. He looks very sad. His face he's frowning. He ends up hanging a rope from the ceiling of his house, and he says, quote, "I can't seem to get happy. Maybe this will help." And then, of course, to any adult, we're thinking like, oh my gosh, he's going to commit suicide. He's going to try to end his life. But, of course, this is a children's show. So shortly after he hangs the rope up, he pulls the rope, and it turns out that he was just hanging up a bird cage with a small pet clam in it, which represents birds in this show. And however, the message I feel to the audience is very clear that Squidward potentially is suicidal. And seeing as 60 to 70% of people with borderline personality disorder commit suicide, this behavior definitely fits the description, I would say. However, the only symptom that I don't really see Squidward possessing is the particular issue of idealizing and then devaluing people when it comes to his interpersonal relationships. Squidward pretty much constantly treats people poorly, pretty much everyone. And in no episode is he idealizing someone except for maybe himself, which he does every now and then. So moving to treatments, the treatment that I would prescribe Squidward is psychological intervention in the form of therapy, more specifically talk therapy. I feel like Squidward's borderline personality disorder is not so severe that he would need to be hospitalized or to be medicated, which there are treatments like that for borderline personality disorder, but I feel like he's more on the moderate side. So I feel like he would benefit from a combination of psychodynamic, experimental, and behavioral therapies. That I feel like that would be very beneficial to Mr. Tentacles. This particular approach to treating borderline personality disorder was first developed in the UK before the mid-1800s. This approach to treating this disorder developed through many modifications of existing treatments, as mental health professionals recognized that people with this problem had more complex difficulties. Treatment such as this tends to cover multiple bases at once: a behavioral approach to therapy in regards to the self-harm and suicidal thoughts, includes skill training and emotional regulation, and validating the patient's feelings. This would be beneficial to Squidward, and he might stop taking his sadness out on himself and others, and hopefully through this treatment, the suicidal gestures he makes will stop. Cognitive analytical therapy works to address the depression and the issues that come with interpersonal relationships. I have hopes that this will work to resolve Squidward's fear of abandonment so that he can overcome his aversion to people. Many clients, or many clinicians, and healthcare workers do not use just one form of therapy, but they use a more broad approach to talk therapy, which involves all methods. Talk therapy can help to ease the symptoms of people with BPD, and it can teach good coping mechanisms to reduce sadness and rage. Squidward will be expected to meet with a clinician 1 to 2 times a week for his talk therapy. He's also expected to stay in good health, which I don't think he'll have an issue with, and I'm hoping that this treatment will help Mr. Tentacles. So when it comes to environmental factors that would potentially negatively affect Squidward's progress, this might be his neighbors and his coworker SpongeBob. SpongeBob and his other neighbor Patrick, who is SpongeBob's best friend. They seem to be the main source of Squidward's stress, and they act as triggers for his rage. I've noticed they're his only peers, putting them in Squidward's mesosystem in regards to the ecological theory of development. His exposure to SpongeBob and Patrick, I fear, will undermine his treatment, seeing as Squidward doesn't seem to have any prolonged interaction with many people outside of these two. Squidward's workplace environment, I also feel, will undermine his progress, as his boss seems to irritate him a lot. Despite his mesosystem not being ideal, Squidward does not seem to have any individual stresses. He seems to be in good health overall, and he's comfortable with his age and his sexuality and his gender. He's never shown to have any issues or complications with these. I also think the time period and social standing that Squidward is at and lives in could support his progress. Never once in the show is he discriminated against or treated poorly based off of any of these things. Hopefully this can contribute to his treatment going over smoothly, and I hope that Mr. Tentacles will be able to recover well. Thank you for watching.